What if I told you that in 1913, a housewife sat down with a Ouija board and a dead woman started writing novels through her? Not little messages, not hello from the other side. Entire books, poetry, ancient language scholars said she should not have known. And she didn't even consider herself a psychic. So who was Patience Worth? And was this grief, imagination, or proof that consciousness survives death? Today, we're stepping into one of the strangest, most documented mediumship cases in history. And I want you to listen closely, because what happened to Pearl Curran might change the way you think about channeling forever. Pearl Curran was born in 1883. By all accounts, she was not a scholar. She was not a historian, not a literary prodigy. She left school early and lived a relatively ordinary life. In 1913, while casually experimenting with a Ouija board, something unexpected happened. A presence introduced itself. My name is Patience Worth. What began as casual curiosity became one of the most studied mediumistic cases in the 20th century. Pearl didn't describe anything dark or frightening. She described something intelligent, loving, and present, like someone waiting patiently to be heard. That detail matters because not all spirit contact feels chaotic. Some feels like remembering someone you've always known. According to the personality that emerged, Patience Worth claimed she lived in 17th century England, later traveled to the American colonies, and died during conflict. But what fascinated research most wasn't just her story, it was her voice. Patience had personality. She was witty, sharp, sometimes playful, sometimes stern. She corrected grammar, refused trivial questions, displayed emotional intelligence. This wasn't vague symbolism, it was coherent character. And for those of you who are grieving, this detail matters deeply because one of the greatest fears after loss is, will my loved one lose who they are? In this case, personality remained intact. Humor remained, creativity remained, individual tone remained. That's powerful. In the beginning, Pearl and her friend placed their hands lightly on the planchette. They didn't push, and they didn't force a movement. They asked simple, respectful questions. Letters were spelled slowly at first, then sentences, then fully formed poetic responses. Witnesses described Pearl as calm, not dramatic, and not entranced. Over time, the board became unnecessary. Pearl reported that she could receive the words internally. So the tool faded and the connection continued. This is important. Tools are not the source. They are sometimes training wheels. Now, I want to pause here because curiosity about the unknown is natural. But discernment matters. If someone chooses to use a Ouija board, safety is not about fear. It's about clarity and boundaries. Here are grounded principles. Do not use the Ouija board when feeling emotionally unstable, grieving intensely, or afraid. Do not use it alone. Do not use it when drunk or high. Set a clear intention before beginning. Verbally state that only loving, truthful communication aligned with your highest good is welcome. Keep the session brief and close intentionally. Thank whatever presence communicated and clearly say the session is ended. Physically remove your hands and store the board away somewhere sacred. And most importantly, if at any time something feels unsettling for you, stop. Immediately. You do not argue, you do not challenge, you disengage. Exploring the unknown should feel calm, curious, and sovereign, not dramatic, compulsive, or overwhelming. Inside my spiritual academy, we don't rely on tools. We focus on strengthening your inner perception safely and steadily, because the real instrument is you. Through Pearl, Patience Worth produced multiple novels, thousands of poems, plays, and philosophical works. One novel, The Sorry Tale, was set in ancient Judea and contained historical details that startled researchers. Linguists examined the archaic language. Some concluded the dialect reflected authentic early English, forms Pearl had no documented access to. Entire literary works flowed rapidly with limited revision. Whether spirit communication or extraordinary subconscious ability, the consistency was remarkable. What often gets overlooked is the tone of the relationship between Pearl and patients. Pearl didn't describe possession, she described companionship. She felt guided, not overtaken, supported, not controlled. There was collaboration. Over time, it felt like a friendship across the threshold. For mediumship students, this is a key distinction. Healthy connection feels cooperative, not invasive. You remain yourself. Your will remains intact. Your discernment stays active. Exploring the unknown does not mean abandoning sovereignty. It means trusting your inner compass. And here's what almost no one talks about. If this was fraud, it was one of the most sophisticated literary deceptions of all time. If it was subconscious, then the human mind is capable of storing centuries-old linguistic structure. But if it was neither, then Pearl was not creating, she was receiving. And that's where discernment becomes everything. If Patience Worth represented a surviving personality, then consciousness may not dissolve after death. It may continue evolving, continue to create, continue to think, continue to express. For those who have lost creative loved ones, writers, authors, musicians, this opens a gentle possibility. Perhaps their creative spark does not end. Perhaps it transforms. And perhaps connection is less about dramatic phenomena and more about quiet listening. Was this spirit communication, subconscious genius, a collective unconscious phenomenon? Researchers debated for decades, but what cannot be denied is this: something meaningful unfolded, and it unfolded not through force, but through curiosity, through receptivity, through willingness to explore. Now here's something you should know. My spiritual academy does not teach automatic writing. We teach 8 different techniques to open your mediumistic channel safely in a spiritually grounded way, because exploring the unknown should feel expansive, not destabilizing. There's a difference between curiosity and conscious development. And if you're drawn to these historical cases, it might be because your own channel is gently trying to open. If Patience Worth was real, then someone beyond the veil, a woman from another century, continued to create. And somewhere in the early 1900s, an ordinary woman had the courage to listen. And perhaps that is the deeper lesson. Not whether spirit exists, but whether we are willing to explore the unknown with wisdom, boundaries, and an open heart. If you're fascinated about documented cases of mediumship throughout history, I've created an entire playlist called Mediumship Mysteries. These are stories the world almost forgot, and each one teaches us something about what survives the veil. I'll link it down below. Now tell me in the comments, do you think Pearl was writing alone, or was someone guiding her hand? Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next mystery.